Welcome to Halloween month. Once again, this is probably going to be the only video I'm doing for Halloween month because I'm still trying to get a bearing on my updated setup and whatnot. It's still going to be evolving, and sorry if you can see a bunch of stupid noise, but god damn it, this is really hard to figure out. But I wanted to do something for Halloween month, and seeing as how one of my most popular videos was the one where I compared the original Nosferatu with its remake, Nosferatu the Vampire, I figured, why not do it again this year? But this time, let's go a little more controversial. Let's compare one of the most beloved 80s horror movies with its critically annihilated remake, both of which titled A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, you may be asking, why are you even comparing these two? The original is better, no contest. But, is it really not a contest? After 11 years, I think it's fair we go back to the remake for re-examination. I mean, we're further away from when the Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out than the Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out, as opposed to when Freddy vs. Jason came out, which was the last time we saw Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Is the original a timeless classic, or has the 80s dated the film a bit? Is the remake a worthless nostalgia grab, or did it try some new, interesting ideas to help distinguish itself from the original? Let's take a look. By the way, there's going to be some spoilers, so proceed with caution. Now, if I'm being honest, it's hard to really compare the two in terms of individual categories, like supporting cast for example. Both films actually have a really solid cast of victims with interesting personalities. The teenagers are interesting, and even the parents are interesting. So I can really just do a general comparison of the two, which is more or less the story and Freddy Krueger himself. Now, one thing I'm making completely clear is that I'm only comparing the Nightmare on Elm Street remake with the first Nightmare on Elm Street, like the first one that started it all. I'm not comparing the remake with any of the sequels. The sequels, like, that's not relevant here. We are only comparing the first Nightmare on Elm Street with the remake. The reason why I say this is because one of the criticisms that seems to be prevalent in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake was that Freddy Krueger wasn't really jokey enough, like he wasn't a quipster. But in going back to the original, Freddy Krueger is actually not that much of a jokester to begin with. In fact, he doesn't have much screen time at all. It wasn't until the Freddy sequels came out that he became the snarky one-liner guy. The remake was only trying to get back to the roots of the franchise. And if I'm being honest, I like how the remake goes in this kind of darker direction. One thing I always look for in remakes is how distinct it is from the original, whether it be through story, visuals, or even when or where the story takes place. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake does try to give itself a unique identity, just how the original made its own identity back in the 80s. Both films have a similar plot, but they go about it in different ways due to the nature of Freddy Krueger himself, what he's able to do, and how the parents react to him. In the original, Freddy Krueger is a child murderer nicknamed the Springwood Slasher, who was arrested for his crimes, but was let go due to the signature on the warrant for his arrest being signed in the wrong place, which isn't how arrest warrants work, to be honest. Since the justice system failed them, the parents of Springwood took it upon themselves to burn him in the same boiler room where he would kill his victims. He comes back as a spirit, and now he hunts children in their sleep. The remake takes a different approach. A really different approach. In this version, Freddy Krueger was the groundskeeper of a preschool, but he didn't kill kids. Instead, he sexually abuses them. In a fit of rage, the parents of said children, understandably, don't even wait for the justice system and decide to kill him outright. Now Freddy has come back as a spirit to get revenge on the children who came forward. This is a bit of a controversial change because now this takes Freddy Krueger from being entertainingly evil, like let's say Calvin Candy from Django Unchained, and makes him more of a realistic, disturbingly evil kind of villain, like Edwin Epps from 12 Years a Slave. Honestly, both backstories I feel are very effective. And both backstories are told very differently. In the original, Nancy's mother pretty much explains what happened with the whole Freddy Krueger situation and how he was killing kids and whatnot. I already told you that. But yeah, she audibly tells her the story, but we never see it. Whereas in the remake, no one outright says what happened. The remake actually tells the backstory through flashbacks or implication, which, in my opinion, is even more effective. Now, some criticisms of the film revolve around the idea that there's not much ambiguity as to whether or not Freddy Krueger actually did commit those crimes. Because, I mean, as they pretty much show in the movie, I mean, they don't show it, but they very much imply it, that this is the case, that yes, Freddy Krueger is indeed guilty of pedophilia and just all that nastiness. And if I'm being honest, I kind of disagree with that criticism. I mean, this is a very relevant subject, especially today, and I don't know if the right message of the film would be, you know, hey, let's have some room for doubt when it comes to pedophilia. I just don't know if that's really the right attitude to have. Because this is like some really serious shit that Freddy Krueger is being accused of. And so I kind of prefer that they went the more direct approach that, yeah, he is guilty of these crimes. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't get more creeps from the remake. Yeah, Freddy's backstory alone is really fucked up in of itself, but Jackie Earle Haley's performance is freaky. For one, the makeup looks legitimately more like a dude who was burned to death. The makeup department did a phenomenal job with this redesign. But even his voice is unnerving. I don't know if they added more bass to his voice, but god damn, it felt like he was right in my ear.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class.
One of my criticisms of the original, in terms of the scare factor, was the music. Because it just kind of had that 80s vibe to it, and it made it feel more like Labyrinth than a horror movie. The remake goes with more traditional low strings to build up, you know, tension and whatnot. And yeah, they do use the original movie's theme, you know, doo 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 doo, like whatever the, you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street theme, but they adapt it for a more modern audience. Another thing I'll give the remake is that it takes further advantage of the dream world and insomnia. The transitions from being awake to going to sleep range from subtle and quiet to drawn out and mind-bending. It also taps into something that was never really touched on in the original film: micro-sleeps. You know that feeling, like, you know, when you're just sort of in your chair and you feel like you've been asleep for like an hour or something, but really it's only been like a minute or two that's passed by? That's something that was never really touched on in the original, and the remake does, and I gotta say, like, it makes Freddy feel even more intimidating, because not even that can save you, like, not even, you know, a micro-sleep can save you, and the effects of insomnia, I feel like, are even more prevalent in the remake, because it gets into issues, you know, like how driving drowsy can, like, that can inevitably lead to a car crash. I mean, hell, that's really just the thing about insomnia in general, because even when you're fully awake, you start seeing things. And the remake does do that as well, because even when, you know, someone's awake and whatnot, they think they see Freddy, but it's not really him due to the nature of hallucinations while you're, you know, when you're sleep deprived. And I thought that was a really interesting addition to the remake. And I know I'm gonna get some hate for this, but I feel like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake follows its own rules better than the original. In the original, there are, you know, at least a couple of scenes, maybe 2 or 3 scenes, where Freddy Krueger kills someone where they're clearly awake, like their eyes are open. They're, you know, and it's making it very clear that these people are awake. But the movie establishes that Freddy can only kill you in your dreams. The remake makes it abundantly clear that Freddy Krueger can only kill his victims in their sleep. Even when they're writhing and screaming in bed and whatnot, their eyes are still completely closed. And I also kind of find it silly that in the original, this teenager was able to home alone her way into defeating Freddy. That isn't to say the remake is completely flawless though. The film tries to have some remember this from the first movie moments, and they honestly pull me out of the great work this film was doing in making itself feel distinct. And I'm just gonna say it, neither film sticks the landing in terms of the ending. They both try to have this dumb retcon gotcha moment that reveals Freddy's still alive and that he can never be stopped, but it just comes off as so abrupt and just like, wait, why? How is Freddy still around? Like, was this all a dream? Is this still a dream? It makes the whole thing feel convoluted. If they wanted to leave it open-ended, they could have like put in something that could or could not be Freddy returning. Maybe have Nancy go to sleep, and where, like, as her back is turned to her bedroom door, maybe the hallway lights turn on, and you see, like, someone walking up to her door. For all we know, maybe that's Freddy, or maybe that's Nancy's mom just checking on her daughter who's finally getting some sleep after not getting some in quite a while. They could have just done that. Why the dumb ending where it's like, gotcha, he was still around, like Freddy's still around. It's like, I don't get that. And so I must answer the question. Which movie, in my opinion, was better, the original or the remake? The original film is still certainly pretty good. The story is engaging, and as an introduction to Freddy Krueger, it still works. But I can't believe I'm saying this, but the remake, in my opinion, takes the cake for a few reasons. For one, it was overall scarier due to the score not being filled with 80s cheese. The kills range from over the top to nightmarishly realistic and brutal. Freddy himself as a character is so creepy on so many levels, from the realistic makeup, to the amazing sound mix with his voice, to the arguably more fucked up backstory. But I also can't help but appreciate how the remake takes further advantage of not only insomnia and micro-sleeps, but the dream world as well, using great effects, sharp editing, and clever cinematography to achieve it. And I'm going to assume the like to dislike ratio is skewing very heavily towards the dislikes. Well guess what? Joke's on you. Any interaction with the video is good for my channel, so